Welcome guys to CTHS Culinary Arts. I am Chef Alba and I'm here today to do a little summer camp demonstration for you guys. I have here the little package you'll receive. We've been passing these out today, and so hopefully you've got yours in good condition. The Culinary Arts one is going to have just 3 ingredients in it. So we're looking at 6 ounces of macaroni pasta. We're looking at a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. And 6 ounces of just shredded cheese, okay? So we picked this because it's really easy and it was very minimal ingredients. So we wanted to make sure that we could have something that was, some things that you might have in your kitchen at home. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. I already opened up a can actually because our can opener's in the kitchen. I didn't have one out here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this aside. So the first thing we're gonna do with your ingredients, obviously you have the recipe in here, but I'm not gonna read from that because it's pretty simple, but you guys can reference that if you need to, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our pasta. It's already measured for you, so really easy. We're going to put that into just a saute pan that just about fits. And actually, we have an angle here, right? So we can see the top. I don't have to put this up. Okay. So we're just going to put our pasta into a saute pan about this size. That'll just kind of fit our pasta in one single layer there. A little stacking is okay. And we're going to go ahead and get that turned on. Okay. We're going to put some water in here. And look, I didn't give you guys a measurement for the water because it's really kind of just depend on your pan. What you're trying to do is just kind of enough to cover the pasta so that it's submerged and there's no dry pasta sticking out. Or as little dry pasta sticking out as possible, okay? So while this heats up, we're gonna talk about a couple of the ingredients and maybe some things that you guys can do just kind of on your own after you finish this. Basically, these ingredients can kind of be subbed out, so like whatever kind of pasta you guys want. You can sub out the cheese to whatever kind of cheese you guys want. And the milk, honestly, you can even use regular milk if you'd like. The only reason we're using evaporated milk is because it has less of a tendency to burn on the bottom of the pan. So it is nice to have that, but if you just absolutely were in a pinch, then you could just use regular milk as well. You just got to be really careful when you're stirring and cooking because it can scorch on the bottom of the pan. One more thing I need to mention is that the pans themselves matter a lot. We don't actually have non-stick pans up here, but most home kitchens do. So it would be a good idea to as like an extra precaution, so you don't get sticking on your pan, to use a non-stick pan if you have that available. We don't have it available, so I'm just going to go for it, and we're going to see what happens. So I think it'll be okay as long as I'm just paying attention to it. The main thing during this whole process, because you're cooking with starches and sugars in the milk and stuff like that, is just to make sure that that you're stirring, okay? Stirring and scraping the bottom of the pan. That's gonna ensure that you don't have any sticking, or at least minimize it. So I've got my cooktop just on full high right now, just to go ahead and get this boiling as soon as possible. We're gonna cook the pasta what we call al dente, and what al dente means is that, well, it literally translates from Italian to the tooth, which means that when you bite, it has some bite to it, So we don't want soggy pasta here because we're going to continue to cook it with the milk after it kind of does this thing in the water. So we want to just kind of do a little bit shortened cook time in the water, and then we continue the cooking with the milk. So this may look a little different than what you've normally done, and actually it's very different from the way that I taught it for years. And the way you learn in culinary school too is it's all about massive amounts of boiling salted water, right? It turns out you really don't need to do that. So what you can do is actually you can cook pasta in little amounts of water, but you have to make sure that you're stirring constantly. And for this application, it's really good. See, the reason that we actually don't use a lot of water in the first place, we use a lot of water in the first place, like traditionally, is because pasta has a lot of starch. So if you don't want starch, like if you're cooking spaghetti or something like that, you don't want a lot of starch because it gets really sticky and the pasta sticks together. That's a time that you would use lots of water. But in this case, we're not using lots of water because we want lots of starch in the water. We want lots of stickiness in there. And the reason we want that is because we're going to try to make a cheese sauce. And the basis of all sauces is starch, right? So either that's cornstarch or that's flour. If you're making a gravy, you do flour with a little butter. That would be the basis of that. But there's always a starch to make the sauce. So in this case, we're not adding anything. We're just using the natural starches that are going to be released from the pasta. They're going into the water, right? So they're making a nice, starchy, sticky liquid that's a basis for all of our cheese and everything. And it's what makes this work. If you were to take pasta and cook it in water and then drain it and then try to do this, it wouldn't work. And the reason it wouldn't work is because you have nothing to emulsify the sauce. And emulsify means like to make them bond together, right? So our cheese and our milk needs to really become one thing. And the only way that it really becomes one thing is if they have the emulsifying ingredient, which is the starch, right? It's a lot of talking, sorry. Okay, but there is a lot of science to food, and you have to be aware of that. Okay, so this is starting to come to a nice little boil here. I'm not actually timing it because I do this recipe a lot. So, I mean, at home, I would say about 6 minutes is going to give you al dente. What I'll do is I'll just taste this. One thing that I actually just forgot that I just realized now, and I might have it up here, is salt. We did not put salt in your bags, okay? So you have to have salt. But I figured most households had salt, so we didn't add that, okay? Salt is really, I mean, I guess you don't technically have to have it, but it's going to give good flavor to the pasta because the cheese is not salty enough, okay? If for some reason you don't have salt, you could always use like a really salty cheese. Parmesan is a really good one. But I figure most of you guys probably have that at home, so. If you don't, you can send your complaints to my CTE director. Just kidding, don't send any complaints to her. You can complain when you come here and you're a student here. Okay, so just to remind you what I'm doing here, lots of stirring, so make sure you're doing the same thing when you're at home. And just kind of scraping the bottom here, just making sure that we're not getting anything sticking, and we're not at this point, so we're all good. As this cooks, one more thing I want to mention is that they don't sell evaporated milk in 6-ounce cans, so you only actually need 6 ounces for this recipe, which if you look at it, you'll notice that. But you have 12 here, so do not pour the whole can in. You don't need the whole can, okay? We gave you an extra half can, so you can do this recipe again with whatever cheese you have at your house, okay? At my house, like honestly, like we have random cheeses all the time, so we just put basically anything we want in there, okay? For my son, even I actually put some vegetables like pureed carrots and sweet potatoes. I know, don't judge me, but he doesn't eat his vegetables otherwise, so I do that as well. I'll kind of add that in there as well. So you can do a lot of different things with this base recipe. Okay, so you'll notice that as we continue to cook on, there's less and less water, and we actually do want that. We only put enough water so that we don't actually have to drain it at the end. That's intentional, okay? Because like I said, we wanted the starchy water. So you'll start to get to the point where the pasta is actually poking through, and that's okay, okay? Once we get to the point where a lot of, I would say the majority of the water, maybe 70% of the water is evaporated, that's when we're gonna go ahead and add our 6 ounces of milk, okay? And then what we'll do is just bring that to a boil, and then add our cheese and reduce heat until it gets nice and creamy. So at this point, if I had salt, imaginary salt here, I would put that in there. Maybe just like, I like to say a 3-finger pinch, so I like to grab my salt with 3 fingers and go ahead and you can taste, based on that. But, okay, so now we're getting to the point, I'm not gonna put salt in this one because I don't have it, but you can do that at home. Lost a couple little macaronis there. Okay, so this is pretty good now. We got this nice thick liquid here. It's pretty much evaporated. I'm gonna go ahead and add our milk in here, and then we're gonna let this continue to boil. Okay, that's about half a can, okay? All right, so while this is kind of continuing to boil, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my, my trusty soap and sanitizer really quick because I did make a little bit of a mess. So you always wanna work clean. Don't leave your cooktop with pasta like this. This bothers me, okay? Don't do that. Put that over here. We'll wipe this down, get this nice and clean again. And then we'll go right back to stirring to make sure that we do not get any kind of scorching on the bottom of this pan, any sticking, okay? So once this comes to a full boil, then we'll be ready to go ahead and add our cheese in here. One of the things too that I often do at home, if you have like sliced American cheese, what's really great about American cheese is that it already has emulsifiers in it. So like this cheese is just cheese, it doesn't have anything else besides cheese and a little cornstarch to keep it separated. When you're talking about like Velveeta or American Kraft singles, things like that, they're soft for a reason. They melt really nice for a reason. If you ever try to like melt this in the microwave, it's just a big gooey oily mess. It like separates into two things because it doesn't have any emulsifiers in it. If you have like a slice of Kraft American cheese or you have a little Velveeta or something like that, you can throw that in here too because it actually helps a lot for the creaminess of it, but it's not necessary. But my kids like it, and it gives it that nice artificial orange color that you're all used to, that you've probably grown up on, that you get from the Kraft boxes. So if you're looking for to add a little artificial to your macaroni, you can do that. Okay. All right, so it was getting a little high here, so I turned it down a little bit, but I got a good rolling boil now. I'm actually, at this point, I should be adding cheese, but I'm not gonna add it just yet because the pasta looks a little underdone, so I'm gonna let it go a little bit more. So it's nice and, okay. I think I'm gonna add it actually. All right, so we're gonna take our cheese from the deli container, and these are not, you can reuse these. I reuse these for all kinds of things, putting snacks in, doing all kinds of stuff. So you're gonna go ahead and add your cheese in. We wash those and we put like little snacks for the beach and stuff like that. They're great containers. I actually use those over Tupperware, which is a really cheap, inexpensive way to store your food. Okay, so we're just gonna give this a little stir, and I kind of start in the middle and then just gonna work my way out. You can kind of shake your pan a little bit too, but don't make a big mess like I just did with that macaroni jumping out. And you'll start to see that you're getting a nice creamy orange sauce going there. Really good, okay? And like I said, with a pasta thing, you can sub out any kind of pasta you want, really, at your own house. I mean, whatever you're into. Okay, doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be macaroni shape. Macaroni shape is really good for macaroni because it has a hole in it, and so the hole soaks up cheese sauce. So any kind of pasta that has a hole in it is really great for soaking up sauce. Okay, so yeah, that's what we're looking at, guys. Nice, creamy, gooey macaroni. And there's enough to share here. This is actually enough to make 2 servings for like a meal. But you know, you can make it last longer or just scale up the ingredients if you want more. Okay. Thanks for joining me, guys. It's been a pleasure, and you know, we'll see you live next week. Okay.